Hello and welcome to our chapter Customer Lifecycle Journey. Now this is very important chapter for making any B2B marketing organization successful. In this chapter we'll discuss about very fundamental things called target customers and segments. We'll understand the difference between audience, lead and customers. We'll understand the customer lifecycle journey and the famous framework used by many marketers today, which is called AIDA. We'll also introduce you to AIDA++ framework, which is a new framework, extended and derived framework coined by Innoventsoft. We'll go into each stage of AIDA++ framework and introduce you the role of marketer in each stage and what all the content they need to produce to be successful. Now let us start with our first thing, that is the target customer and the segment. Now target customers are the people with some similar attributes who are most likely to buy your product or services. Now, most of the marketers, they make this mistake of not focusing on target customers. Either the content that they would focus would be very different from what target customers would ask, or the digital marketer would try to promote or optimize the content without even knowing what is the target customers. So it is very essential for any product marketer, any digital marketer to first focus on the fundamentals, the target customers. The second important element is segment. Now, segment is dividing target customers into subgroups of customers based on certain attributes. This is done to carry out sales and marketing activities effectively. Now, we'll quickly see an example of target customer and segment. Segment is usually used by demand generation team to prioritize certain campaigns in a month or in a specific time period. Let's take an example of a B2C product and we'll gradually relate it to any B2B product later. Let's take an example of Mercedes-Benz, which we all of us understand that it produces luxury cars. Now, the target customers with some attributes like age, income, occupation and geo can be very different for Mercedes class as compared to any other car manufacturers, like for example Toyota. Now, Mercedes produce luxury cars, so that means it would only target affluent customers, the customer who would have some discretion money to dispensable money to spend and purchase their cars. And for example, let's take the age can be above 35 years. Obviously, any a person who is less than 15 years or 20 years who are in their college may not be able to purchase a Mercedes car. Income level in India, it can be more than 20 lakhs per annum, or if you are based out of US, the income level has to be more than $50,000 per year. The occupation has to be mid-level manager or above, or you need to be an entrepreneur or business who is earning a lot of money. Geography that Mercedes would typically target US, Europe and India. A certain person who belongs to, let's say, underdeveloped country, Mercedes may not target them at all. Now, let us kind of look into segment. What can be the segment? In a particular time period, let's say January, February and March, in a particular quarter, Mercedes wants to run a campaign, and what it would do to prioritize its campaign. Let's take an hypothetical example. Now it would, let's say, make three segments, three buckets. Bucket number 1, which will be US, bucket number 2, which will be people based out of India, and bucket number 3, which will be based out of UK. Now the target customers in each of these geographies for which Mercedes needs to run a campaign for has to be prioritized, and there has to be some effort and money to be going on. And Mercedes would feel that US and India are the best targets, whereas UK may not be a good target for right now. Maybe the reasons can be other luxurious players like Jaguar or BMW or Audi are already running a campaign. So Mercedes in that case would wait for certain time period before it could start a campaign in UK. So that's the reason it is quite essential for the whole marketing department to understand target, who is the target audience and what are the segment that is being targeted or prioritized for a current month or current quarter. Moving on to the next, ideal customer profile or persona. Now, ideal customer profile is sometimes called as ICP. We'll talk about it in detail right now. For B2B, the first ideal customer profile will be the buyer. Buyer are the person who is responsible for taking the final decision to purchase a product or services. For an example, if you have a software product, then ideally CIO or VP of engineering in an organization would take a decision to finally buy the software products for their organization or not. The second part of ideal customer profile or the persona would be influencer. Now, influencer is a person who influences other members of buying center in making the final decision. They are the ones who would understand, let's say if you're selling software products, they will understand your product quickly, they will evaluate it, and they will pass their suggestions and their recommendation to the buyers. Hey, this product or this service will help us in our growth. An example can be the senior mid-level managers such as director of engineering or senior managers who would have spent near about 10 to 15 years in their technical expertise. The final customer profile is users. Now, user is a person who uses a product or services offered by a vendor on daily basis. The software engineer or an application specialist would be typically are the ideal user for a software product. And any B2B marketer has to target all three of them while preparing the content. It's just not for users, just not for influencers. They have to target each of them. The content strategy has to be well spread out for all the customer profile. Now let us understand the audience, lead and customers. Now ideal customer profile can be divided into audience, lead and customer based on certain attributes. For example, if your target audience are coming to your website but you do not know them based on their personal attributes, then they are called prospects or just audience. Once they, let's say, fill up a form, you can identify them based on their email IDs or first name, last name, which company they work for, what are their designation, etc. The moment that you can identify them using some attributes, they can be called as leads, not audience anymore. Now, leads are usually the target audience who shows some interest. That is the reason they would have come and filled some form in your website. The final was is customers. Customers are the leads who have started to consume your product or services and may or may not be paying as of now. If you are following a freemium business model, then you would have a lot of non-paying customers. So these are the three categories of ideal customer profile, or you can say this is usually the flow of your target personas. The first they will become audience whom you do not know about. Then they will become lead whose information usually stored in tools like CRM systems such as HubSpot or Marketo or Salesforce. You can track them, track their activity. The final one is customers. Once they start producing your product or services, they become your customers. Now the important element is customer lifecycle journey. It is nothing but the way or the journey that an audience would take or your audience would take to become lead and then finally customers. And the stages are awareness, interest, desire and action. This is also known as AIDA Framework. Now AIDA Framework is being used by many organizations for decades now. It is very successful to understand marketing and sales and then formulate the strategies. There is nothing new about it. So we have developed AIDA++ framework based on this famous AIDA framework. But before going into that AIDA++, let us try to understand the funnel. Sometimes the AIDA framework is also interpreted in terms of marketing or sales funnel. Let us kind of spend some time there. Now marketing funnel, once you move it from horizontal to vertical, it becomes a funnel. All the awareness, interest, desire and action can be seen as a funnel because of the number of audience whosoever are into awareness to the number of leads to the number of customers is in decreasing size. That's the reason it is considered as funnel. So usually awareness is also seen or called as top of the funnel. Interest and desire is represented as middle of funnel, and action where your leads are becoming customers finally are known as bottom of funnel. They are also called as tofu, mofu and bofu. Now let us move into our AIDA++ framework. Now AIDA++ framework has 8 stages. Instead of 4, we had 8 stages now. The interest stage in AIDA we have broken down into 2. That is interest for research and interest for compare. And after action, we have introduced 3 new stages. That is experience, loyalty and word of mouth. Now AIDA framework is an extensive form of AIDA, as I have already explained. The second thing is it is very important framework to practice organic marketing. When I say organic marketing, then you already practice content marketing, email marketing and social marketing, which we learned in our previous chapters. Let us start with the first stage, awareness. Now in the awareness stage, the customer may not be aware about a problem completely. In this case, the marketing strategy will be to educate your customers. And the content to be used by marketers or developed by marketers are trends of a particular process or challenging status quo. For example, if you ever come up with a new product, software product, which is automating a business process or a IT process, then you have to explain why the IT process is not so efficient enough and why someone needs to ideally use a new product for that solution, for that process. Then you have to prepare educational materials on the problems. Specify what are the key metrics which is being hit by some of the problems in existing status quo. So those are the important things that a marketer need to produce in awareness. Let's go to the next stage called interest for research. Now in this stage, a customer would ideally be aware about the problem. Now they are scouting for a solution. Now whenever they are trying to understand more about a solution, then the marketing strategy can be provide freebies by using certain content like tips and tricks. Hey, these are the tricks, these are the tips using which you can improve your process, or you can improve your get out of existing problems. The other content that you can produce are planning guides. For example, these are the stages through which you can, if you use those strategies, then eventually you will get rid of the problems. You can provide free trials. If you are providing a product, SaaS product especially, you can provide free trials. Hey, you can try that for 14 days and see, how you can make the best out of it. Or if you are providing, let's say, services, then you can provide free services like POC or POV, that is proof of concept or proof of value. Now, once you ensure that there are solutions exist, then the next best thing that your customer will ideally do is compare. That is interest for compare. In this stage, the customers are aware that there is a problem in their organization and there are solutions which exist. But is the solution good enough, or are there any other solution which would provide them best quality with less cost? Now, there is a tendency to evaluate. Please remember, this is a stage where the customers would ideally make decision. They are moving closer towards becoming a customer. And this is a stage where they would ideally spend less and less time and quickly evaluate and move forward, because they understand about the problem and the solution. So the marketing strategy is convince your customers with content such as comparison charts, by having comparison, what was the before scenario, what is the after scenario, after means after using your product and services, what is the value one would derive. Data sheets, product and service differentiator. How are you differentiated from other competition in the market, other vendors in the market? Do not hesitate to call it out through different PDF or articles or blogs. And then try to mention or harp on your USP. That is quite essential for convincing your customers. The fourth stage is desire to purchase. In this stage, the customers have realized that you are the best vendor suitable for them, and then they try to request for POC or POV. Maybe it can be a paid engagement. The marketing strategy is to engage. The engagement will not be direct, it will be indirect. And by using certain content, so if there are, let's say, salesperson, account manager, or any point of contact from your company who is engaging with the lead, then you can help them by providing certain content like first call deck, elevator pitch, pricing sheet, where you do all the bundlings, etc. Case studies to help them understand what are the best possible way to use the product. Then product demos, if necessary, then you can have repeated product demos. Integration document, installation and implementation documents. How easily they can install, how easily they can implement by themselves. It can be do it yourself, or if you want to say that there is a professional services that you provide, you can specify all of that a document to aid your point of contact who is dealing with the customers. Now, in the next stage, where the customers are actually convinced that they would buy the product feature or they would buy the service from you. At that point, marketers do not need to do anything. Strategy is to observe attentively. They have to be very, very keen observant. They need not to produce any exclusive content, but they have to ensure that all of the discussions between the point of contact in your company who is dealing with your customers or leads are getting recorded. So the marketers can get insights from those recordings, what works well, what resonates well with the customers, and they can further optimize their content. The next stage is experience. This is the stage where a customer would consume your product or services and they will try to get the value that has been promised to them. At this stage, the marketing strategy is to again observe and listen and note. Why note? Because they have to come up with certain content pieces like case studies, case stories, and or customer quotations. Now these all content need to be prepared directly or indirectly. If your organization do not provide approvals to marketers to directly connect with the customers, fair enough. You can talk to different account managers, implementation partners, client success team who are directly talking to the customers and understand what is how the product is providing the value and prepare the content. The next stage is loyalty. At this stage, the end customers, they experience the value out of the solution implemented in their environment. Now, if the value is not implemented, then they would try to terminate the service and they go away. If there are high churn rate, then the marketing needs to be involved to understand why there is a churn. And they can also use certain techniques like determining NPS score to gauge the satisfaction index of existing customers. In the last stage, that is word of mouth. At this stage, the customers who are using your product and solution are usually happy, and marketing strategy can be to fetch reviews from those customers who are highly satisfied. Now, content topics can be online reviews and quotes, and certain forums can be utilized by marketers are Gartner peer reviews, G2 Crowd, Trust Radius, etc. You can ask your customers, request your customers to come to those platforms and provide review of your product and services. Now, these are the 8 stages of AIDA ++ framework. Now we'll just summarize what we have learned. The first thing that we have learned was target customers. It is highly important to understand who is our target customers. Then what is the segmentation? Based on your target customers, you would not reach out to all your target customers at once. You have to segment them and prioritize them to run campaigns. It is something essential for demand generation. We also looked into ideal customer profile that are also known as persona. The buyer, influencer, and users. These are your target personas. They are important because you have to produce content for each of these categories. Now, we also understood what is the customer journey looks like. How different audience who are coming to the website getting converted into lead, and how different leads whom you can identify through some personal attributes become your customer. And that is someone who is using your product and solution. We looked into a customer lifecycle journey by taking a framework called AIDA, awareness, interest, desire, and action. And then we discussed how AIDA is also seen as a marketing funnel. Finally, we also touched upon the new framework AIDA ++, which is an extended framework of AIDA. We discussed what would be the marketing strategy and the content strategy in each of these stages, so that you can take the framework and apply in your organization, quickly create a content map and formulate what content is required. And if your B2B marketing organization or B2B organization is so matured, you have a lot of customers, then you have to focus more on action and after that, all the stages after that, on experience, then loyalty and word of mouth. And if you're new into a particular market, if your B2B organization has just begun, then you have to focus more on awareness and interest. Alright, thanks for watching. Please provide your feedback or doubts and do not hesitate to reach out to us at academy@innoventsoft.com. Thank you.